So for those that maybe don't know, who are you and what are you currently doing?
Okay, so my name's Darren Cheeseman. Currently, I'm the head coach of Waterloo Ducks women's first team in the Belgian Premier League, and I'm working as a technical consultant for the Belgian Federation, Belgian Hockey Federation, and I'm a coach educator for the FIH. So those three roles are probably my three biggest ones at the moment.
That's going to take up a reasonable amount of time to those three roles. Pretty decent roles there. And so have you always wanted to be a coach, and like how did you transition from playing into coaching?
I think I've always done aspects of coaching. So from when I was 12 years old, I was put into coaching by Arsenal Football Club. So they got me coaching in the soccer schools during the school holidays, mainly to keep me busy and off the streets. But it was quite cool. So they put me through all my coaching badges, and that was really my first taste of coaching. It was quite cool.
Quite a young age then, yeah.
Yeah, really, really young. So I was a 12-year-old, like doing coaching for 7 to 10-year-olds or whatever it was. So it was looking after the kids that were younger than me, but of course working with the coaches that were much older than me and kind of learning from them, seeing what they were doing, that kind of stuff. And then I went through, and by the time I got a little bit older, Nicky Thompson, who was my coach at the time at Old Laltonians, he got me coaching on all of his hockey camps. So that gave me a bit more confidence in terms of coaching in hockey. And you have to get it right, otherwise Nicky will give you his infamous grilling. So that was a lot of character building, and I got to really learn from Nicky. And then when I was in the Central program with Great Britain, that's when Andy Rogers got hold of me while I was playing for East Grinstead, and he basically kept getting on my back, asking me to go down to the Tonbridge JRPC and help with the coaching. And after a while, I finally gave in, because I always had this kind of thing in my head where if you want to complain about something, and for me that was the Central program, or the whole single system as a whole. If you want to complain about it, it's fine, but the moment you get an opportunity to do something about it, you either do something about it and get involved, or you stop complaining. And at that point, I wasn't really ready to stop complaining. So I took Andy up on his offer. I got involved in the JRPC coaching, and it kind of made me really appreciate what the whole single system was about. It gave me an opportunity to get involved and start working with the players, and kind of really started... it really ignited my own passion for really getting involved in coaching.
That's cool, man. And I think for me, a kind of similar way in terms of wanting to get involved in the system. Like I wanted players to have a better experience than I had, being totally honest, and actually having those opportunities 15 years ago to get involved at just county level, like made me think this is something that I really want to get stuck into. So I completely can relate to you on that aspect in terms of, don't just complain about something, go and fix it and get stuck in, and then you can actually see what it's really like. So completely with you on that one. One of the big things I kind of want to chat with you is, as somebody, like you say, you were involved in the Central program, you played for GB, you've always been involved in coaching. Like, what aspects do you think help transitioning from player to coach, and kind of what are the aspects there that kind of can translate over, as it were?
I think everyone talks about the first one for me, which is credibility. So the moment you walk on the field as a coach and people know you've been a pretty good ex-player, they give you that credibility, and they're almost waiting to hear what you've got to say. And I think that's really cool. But that is something that only lasts about a minute, 2 minutes. So after that first minute or 2 minutes, people no longer care about what you used to be able to do with a stick and ball, and they only care about how you're going to impact on their game or how you're going to make the team better. Like, that's all they really care about. So it does help right at the very beginning. It might help get you the job, if I'm honest. But then once you're in the job, it's about you as a coach. But once you're in there, I think some of the things that might help, or help me for sure, is being able to put myself in the player's shoes. I know that it's really different looking at things from a tower view when you're looking at the video, or when you're on the side of the pitch. That's really different to being that player that's on the ball, you're under pressure, and you still have to make those decisions. And if you've experienced that, you can kind of appreciate that a little bit, and you've got that level of empathy for the player. And you can kind of give some of those tips that you might have been able to go through as a player yourself. It's the same if you're trying to win the ball. Like what you experience when you're a player and you're trying to win that ball is different to if you're on the side and you're saying, okay, well, theoretically you should be able to stand here and you should be able to win the ball. That feeling is a little bit different. And I'd say that kind of the other thing is that I would never expect my players to do anything that I wouldn't have been expecting to do myself. So when I tell a player to put your left hand on the floor and put pressure, like I know that I'd be expecting to do that myself. When I'm talking about being able to split as a centre forward, I know that those distances are possible because I've run it myself. It's not something that I'm looking at on a whiteboard and I'm saying, okay, well, if this piece moves like this, then this player should be able to do that. It's that feeling you have in the game that just gives you a different feeling when you're doing your planning, when you're doing your tactics, and you're trying to give that advice to the players.
So do you think then, in saying that, obviously, and this is a little bit of a loaded question, do you think then ex-players always make good coaches because they have that feeling? Or are there coaches which think, do you always think that ex-players make good coaches then?
100% no. I think there are so many examples of top players becoming top coaches. I mean, you have to look at Max Caldas, Rick Charlesworth, Alison Annan, Adam Commons, like all these. There's so many top players that have become the world's best coaches. The flip side, there are so many of the world's best players that have gone on to be terrible coaches, like terrible coaches. And I'm not going to list those ones. But for me, it does help you, I think, but it's not the essential component to you being a top coach. For me, that so many top players have that feeling, but they don't understand what it is that allows them to be able to do that. So if you don't understand the breakdown of what you're doing as a player, it's really tough to be able to share that with your group of players once you become a coach. If you're not able to relate to the players and the situation that they're in at that time, it's really hard to be able to put together a program to be able to support them in their own journey and growth. So many details I think we take for granted as coaches who have played before. Like, for example, how you receive a ball across your body, just one small tiny thing. You hear coaches so often say, just take it across your body and you'll be able to play quicker. It's like, okay, great, but what does it allow them to actually be able to take that ball across their body when they receive? Like, it's not just simply do it, it's what are those details that allow them to do that? And we as ex-players see things because that's what we were able to do. That's how we saw the game. That's how we control the ball. That's what we did with the ball. But that's not necessarily the case for every single player that you're coaching. So that appreciation of what each player is going through, that understanding of how the game is actually built up. If you don't become obsessed with the game as a coach the same way you became obsessed with the game as a player, it's really hard to get those two crafts to match.
And that's really key. And I was thinking about, actually, as you were talking then, that obsession is everything. I remember sitting with you at a coach conference years and years and years ago, and you were talking about being obsessive about how you move the ball and how every single little detail in terms of body shape, wrist shape, fakes, everything, you obsessed over those details as a player. That's only going to be a good thing leading into your coaching. And I can, again, the relation for me is having not been an outfield player, but now been head coach at National League level and top flight. I haven't got that understanding which you would have as having been an ex-player, but I have that same obsession over detail.
Exactly,
so
yeah.
I've gone onto a pitch and been like, I need 1,000 balls to understand, okay, what is the feel? So when I go and talk to a player, it's not kind of pie in the sky theory. Actually, okay, I've not done it to senior international level, but I understand, okay, well, if my hands are here, if this, that, and the other, then I can then explain that and move that forward. And I think what some players don't have is that obsession to detail. And I think, again, that's probably helped you transition into your coaching. So then how important then is that obsession, and I kind of alluded to already, in terms of as a player, how has that then helped craft you as a coach, do you think?
Yeah, it's huge, but the obsession starts all over again. So everything that I obsessed about as a player gave me a good base of technical understanding and good tactical understanding, but it's now becoming obsessed about my craft as a coach. So every single day I wake up and it's a lifestyle. It's not a role that I take on when I go onto the pitch and I suddenly come up with an incredible session, or I get to the pitch for a match day and it's okay, great, we're just going to do this, this and this, and that will win us the game. Every single day I'm either watching video of us, watching video of our opponents, watching video of other people in the league or elsewhere in the world for hockey, watching other sports with my notepad, just making notes about what I see. It's reading books about leadership, biographies, completely different topics, economics, like to figure out things like game theory, to figure out things like, okay, how do you go into project management? Like, what are the biggest things in project management that might help me put together a better program? It's trying to make sure that I'm connecting with my network to make sure recruitment is better, not just for this year, but for future years.
Network is key. Sorry to interrupt you on that, but like, network for me has been the most valuable thing as a coach, as a young coach back many years ago now, but as a young coach kind of growing up, like just having the confidence to go and ask somebody, like, I don't understand this, you're really good at this, can you help me out? And I think having that bravery just to be like, look, what's the deal with this? How can this be better? Or you've done that, how can you know, how have you got to that? I think massively helped me out. And again, it comes down to that obsessiveness and like determination of, I need to know this, I don't know this, I'm going to go and find out.
Yeah, for me, that was huge. I remember when I first started thinking about going into coaching after I did my JRPC stuff, and I was thinking, okay, like this might be something I'd be really interested in. I got in touch with Simon Letchford, who was the coach at Reading at the time, and he used to be my England A coach when I was younger. And I said to him, Si, I know me and you aren't crazy close anymore because you haven't been my coach in years, but you're somebody I respect. I don't want anything, but can I come all the way out to Reading and watch you coach when you have an opportunity? And he's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, right.
So I used to stand on the pitch and just watch him coach. Reached out to
He's a
Max
seriously
Cowder.
good coach.
Yeah,
Seriously good coach.
Si's wicked. I love him, and he's really open. He's detailed. He's obsessed, and that's another thing that kind of feeds into what I'm interested in. Max Caldas, I reached out to him. I was like, Max, you don't know me for anything.
Save.
Yeah. So can I just come and learn from you? And again, he was somebody that again was really open and let me in. Jamie Moulders, and the list just goes on. Like, it's really important to be able to go and speak to these people and say, you are the world's best at what you do. I'm really open to learning. I'd like to know more. Like, can I just sit and ask you some questions? Can I buy you a coffee? And most people that are any good realize that they are only where they are because other people supported them, and they're willing to give their time to you as well. So Yeah, ask people, network, grow your knowledge really.
So then what would you say the current attributes are for like a top coach? So we're talking if you want to be coaching in kind of national league or junior international, you know, world leading, like what does that look like in your opinion?
I think what we spoke about earlier, that obsession, I think there are some good coaches out there who are able to, because of their knowledge, they're able to walk onto a pitch and deliver a good session. They're able to get their team playing some okay hockey by putting in some basic principles or whatever on a match day. But the coaches that are really obsessed and they put in the work throughout the week, throughout the months, throughout the years to make sure they're building something sustainable, I think that's the first real big key attribute. I think the next thing is there are so many successful coaches that are nothing like each other. Max Caldas is nothing like Shane McLeod. Like they're completely different characters. And you have some coaches that are very tactical, some coaches are very technical, some coaches are very social. So they're only the only thing that they're really good at is making sure they get a good team atmosphere. And it's almost the players that kind of just by feeling good go out and play crazy good hockey, but the technical tactical stuff is not necessarily there for the coach. So I think to say there's one type of coach that is really successful, I think that's an outdated way of looking at it. I think what is essential is that there's a level of care and trust. So the players need to trust that the coach really cares about them and cares about their performance or their game. And I think if that's the case, then the players will buy into whatever it is you have to say. But if the players don't trust that you care about them, or they don't trust that you care about the development of their game, then I think that's where a lot of coaches fall short, and you don't really get that buy-in from the players, and it doesn't matter what your knowledge is, they're not really going to listen to you. Yeah, those would be the biggest things for me.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely one thing which, again, having experienced some really good coaches and some really average coaches, the coaches which I have most fond memories of, the ones that really cared and had that empathy for me as a player and for the wider group, and had that want to engage on all levels. Like, and then you, as a player, as you know, like if you've got a coach you trust, you run through a wall for them. Like, you do anything.
Yeah.
Whereas your average coaches who feel like, oh, well, it's about me and I'm the big I am. You just were like, oh, whatever, don't care.
But I challenge you a little bit, because when I talk about that trust and care, there are also coaches who couldn't care less about what happens to you away from the field. They don't seem to care about you as a person, but you can see and you trust that they know enough and they care enough about the game and your development that's what gets you. So
but there has to be a hook for you as a player, and I think that's the really interesting thing. So you could have two different coaches, you could have Shane and Max, and like some players will be absolutely hooked by one and completely turned off by the other. So I think it's also about getting that balance of the player wanting to be in that environment big time. Yeah.
Like I remember, like one of my early, like kind of leading figures was a guy called Martin Foxall, who some people in the coaching world know. He was a coach at a really small state school in Hackney called Homerton House, and it just so happened that he as a coach created this huge cluster of crazy good players that went on to play for Great Britain. But anyone that knows Martin, a lot of people are really scared of him because he's a drill sergeant. He makes you run, he screams at you, he makes you so uncomfortable. But you ask the vast majority of his players, who they love the most, and it's Martin. Like, they always go back to him. When I was injured and I needed somebody to get me fit as a senior international, I went back to Martin and was like, Martin, I need you to work with me. Because even though he treats you bad at times and you feel put under pressure, you know that he cares a lot about you becoming the best player you can be. And I think that's something that's really important. So how you show that care, how you build that trust, can be completely different from coach to coach, from program to program. But that care and trust, I think, are crazy essential.
What advice then? So moving on, what advice would you give to maybe guys that haven't been top flight players but want to be the best coach that they can be? Yes, we said about the obsession. Like, what advice would you give to them, kind of building on some of the stuff we've already said about?
Just get on the field, talk to players, and be authentic. So don't try, if you don't feel comfortable on the technical side, don't try to go too detailed in the technical side, because the players will know straight away, like, that's not something that is a strength of yours. So don't deliver it. Like, don't go into it. It doesn't need to be done. You can use the other players as a technical guide. You can use an assistant coach to deliver the technical stuff. Like, don't deliver stuff that you don't feel comfortable in or you don't feel is your expertise. But don't neglect it. Go away and work on it. Speak to the players and ask them, when you did that, like, what is it that allowed you to do that? Go and speak to other coaches, go on courses, read books. I keep going back to it. Be obsessed and try to find out as much as you can about the details of the game. And I think that will allow you then to build up your experience, and then you can start kind of giving these little points as you go through. And will you be the same? Will you be able to deliver the same level of technical detail that Jamie Dwyer might be able to deliver if he turns into a top coach? Maybe not, but you'll be able to offer something that will make the player better for sure, because you care about the details. And for me, that's the important part.
So then what would you say is next in coaching? So I feel like there's been kind of lots of kind of buzz themes and everything else that have gone on in terms of, once it was very technical and not much kind of contextual stuff. It's gone very contextual and kind of trying to be left field with everything. Like, what do you think is next in not only coaching but in hockey as a whole? Like, what do you think is the next kind of evolution?
I'd hope that we start to see a bit more of that hybrid. Over the last, for as long as I can remember, coaches have been listening to what the new thing is, and they've jumped on it and they deliver it blindly. So as a player, I always asked my coaches why. And I was a nuisance, and coaches thought I was...
Really? You?
Yeah. Coaches thought I was a troublemaker and everything else. I promise you I wasn't. I probably came across that way, but I was asking why, not because I was trying to belittle the coach or to cause problems, but because if you can tell me why, then I buy into it. If you can't tell me why, then why shouldn't I be able to do what I think I should be doing? Because I know why I do that. And for me, the coaches never understood that, because they saw it as me challenging their authority. But I was genuinely just looking for somebody to give me an explanation to the detail that sits behind what they're telling me to do, so I can buy into it. And what I see at the moment is a lot of coaches have that same mindset, where they are delivering things that they don't know the detail of, because that's the thing that they should be doing at the moment. So gameplay stuff. I mean, gameplay is really important. Small-sided games, it's so important. Of course it is. But this war on drills that we're seeing, why? Ask why. Challenge it. Really challenge it. Deliver drills. Deliver gameplay. But no, why? And hopefully we see this hybrid where people become authentic in what they're doing. They take the bits that makes sense to them. They develop it themselves. They put it into their own mindset. They put it into their own principles and the way they see the game, and they really start to develop what they see the game to be like, rather than just saying, okay, everyone's doing gameplay, that's what I'm doing, there's a war on drills. Everyone's doing zonal hockey, I'm going to scrap man to man. Everyone's doing this, I'm no longer going to do that. And really challenge it. And I hope the next few years we'll really start to see people doing that, where we start to see people saying yes but, or why, or yeah, I think that, but I also think this. And we start to see all of these different concepts and theories kind of come together in this beautiful melting pot, and we start to see some real creativity.
And I think this is a great kind of place to kind of finish as well, because I think I've always had the belief that coaching's an art more than a science. And I think what you said then, for me, is exactly how I feel coaching should be. It should be that, have that creativity, have that ability to understand why you're delivering something and deliver it for the players, because of the players, not because somebody's told you otherwise. And I think that having that belief system, for me, is the core of my coaching, and I think it should, in my opinion, should be kind of the core of coaching in general. Like, be creative, be brave, do what needs doing, because that's what you understand, and that's how you can develop your players at that moment in time, not just because a textbook's told you so.
Of course. And then I think the other side is we speak so much to the players about it's okay to make mistakes, you need to be able to make mistakes to learn, but we expect perfection from ourselves and we never show any vulnerability. And I think opening up and being vulnerable to your players and saying, listen, yeah, we tried that, it didn't work. The last couple of games didn't really go as we planned because we tried this and this. Okay, we've learned from that. This is what's next. And if the players can see that you don't use it as an excuse, but it's a genuine part of who you are and trying to really strive to be the best you can be by challenging your own boundaries and trying to push further. I think that level of authenticity really supports you and your development and your whole program. So yes, there's trying to make sure that you take all the different concepts and you challenge why, but there's also it's okay to make mistakes, it's okay to be wrong, it's okay not to know, as long as you're really striving to push that further.
Mate, this has been an absolute pleasure. I think you and I know fact, you and I could talk about coaching for days, hours, months quite easily. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
It's been quality. So yeah, thank you so much. Stay safe, look after yourself, and
thank you,
look forward to catching up to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, mate.